I was not expecting company. It was a Sunday night around 11:30 p.m., and I was doing what I always do when I'm procrastinating. Sitting on the floor in sweats, eating cold pasta straight from the container, watching trashy TV I pretend not to like. My roommate was out of town, and I'd been enjoying the quiet way too much. That's when my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Thought it was probably another group chat lighting up over some meme I wouldn't get. But then it buzzed again. And again. I finally looked. 3 texts, all from a number I hadn't saved, but I knew exactly who it was. Hey, you home? Can I come by? I need a place to crash, I'll explain. No name, no explanation, but I didn't need one. Because I knew exactly who he was. Luca, my brother's best friend. My former college crush. The guy that first spent most of sophomore year silently thirsting over while pretending to be normal. The guy who was always just out of reach. Too cool, too straight, too damn comfortable walking around our shared dorm room shirtless like it didn't kill me every time. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years. Last I heard, he moved across the state for work, got a girlfriend, typical, and was basically living his best hetero life on Instagram. Meanwhile, I was stuck here. Same apartment, same job, same low-key chaos. And now he was texting me? I hesitated for maybe half a second before I replied, "Yeah, come over." 20 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I swear I stopped breathing for a second. There he was. Same messy curls, same ridiculous jawline, same lazy confidence in the way he stood. But something was different. His face looked tight. Exhausted. His hoodie was damp around the edges, like he'd been walking in the drizzle. And his eyes, usually sharp, full of jokes, were dull. "Hey," he said, voice lower than I remembered. "Hey," I said, stepping back. "Come in." He brushed past me with that same familiar scent, clean laundry and cologne, like nothing had changed, except everything had. I closed the door behind him and turned. "You okay?" He gave me a look. The kind of look that answers nothing and everything at once. "Not really," he said. I waited, not pushing. He sat down on the edge of my couch, hunched forward with his elbows on his knees, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to warm them up. "You want water? Or something?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. I just didn't know where else to go." "Did something happen?" He was quiet for a second. Then I broke up with Elise. That name hit me like a dart. His girlfriend. "Shit," I said. "I'm sorry." He shrugged, eyes still on the floor. It was coming. I just didn't expect it to suck this much. I sat across from him, trying to keep my voice even. "What happened?" She said I'm distracted, that I'm somewhere else even when I'm with her. He looked up at me finally. She's not wrong. I didn't know what to say to that. "I've been thinking about a lot of shit," he added. "Stuff I never really dealt with." I nodded slowly. "Like what?" He looked at me for a long time, then, "Like you," I blinked. "Me?" "Yeah," he said. "I've been thinking about you." The room went still. No TV, no pasta, just the sound of rain against the window and my heartbeat in my ears. "I know that sounds weird," he said quickly, "and I don't even know what I'm trying to say. But ever since we all lost touch, you're the one I keep thinking about. Like what you're doing. If you're okay, if you ever think about me." I swallowed hard. "I used to." That made him smile. Just barely. "Used to?" "I had a thing for you in college," I said. "Pretty obvious thing, actually." He nodded slowly, like he already knew. "I thought I was crazy," I added. "You were always with girls, and you never said anything. I figured it was one of those unrequited stories people laugh about later." He leaned back on the couch, still watching me. What if it wasn't unrequited? Now it was my turn to stare. "You never made a move," I said. I didn't know how, he said quietly. I didn't even know what I was feeling back then. I was scared shitless. I didn't say anything. I still am, he admitted. But I knew if I didn't talk to you tonight, I'd keep thinking about it forever. I stood up, partly because I couldn't sit still anymore, and partly because my brain felt like it was short-circuiting. Luca? Thinking about me? This wasn't how these things happened. He looked up. You want me to leave? No, I said too quickly. I don't know what to do with this. Me either, he said. But can I stay? Just for the night, nothing weird. I just don't want to be alone right now. I nodded. Yeah, of course. I got him a spare blanket and some sweatpants. He changed in the bathroom while I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to convince myself this was all real. When he came back out, he looked softer, tired, like the armor had finally come off. Thanks, he said. You can take the bed, I offered. I'll take the couch. He shook his head. No way. I'm not kicking you out. We stared at each other for a second. Then, quietly, he said, We can share, if you're okay with that. I nodded, heart pounding. And just like that, he climbed in beside me, not touching, not speaking. Just two people, lying in the dark, trying not to breathe too loud. But I could feel it, the tension, the weight of everything we hadn't said for years. And when I finally drifted off, it wasn't to the sound of TV or rain, but to the quiet rhythm of his breath beside me. I woke up before him, which was weird, because I never wake up before anyone. I'm the guy who sets 3 alarms and still misses morning meetings. But that morning, my eyes opened to the pale gray light spilling across the sheets, and for a second, I forgot why my bed felt warmer than usual. Then, I turned my head. Luca, still asleep, one arm under the pillow, the other draped loosely across the space between us, like he'd reached out in his sleep. His hoodie had ridden up a little, exposing the curve of his waist, the edge of his boxers. I froze. Not because it was weird, but because it wasn't. It felt normal. Too normal. I stared at the ceiling, trying to slow my breathing. I didn't know what last night meant. He hadn't tried anything. Neither had I. We hadn't even touched. Except now, his fingers were brushing mine. Light. Barely, but enough. And then he shifted. I went still, eyes wide, pretending to be asleep as his arm pulled back. He didn't get up right away, just lay there for a moment, sighing quietly. Then, just loud enough for me to hear, You awake? I waited a beat. Yeah. He turned his head. Our eyes met. Sorry, he said. I didn't mean to sprawl. You didn't, I said quickly. Silence. Then he sat up, ruffling his hair, hoodie bunching around his waist. Thanks for letting me stay. Of course, he stretched, and for a second I just watched him. The curve of his back, the tension in his shoulders, how familiar it all felt. Then he looked over. Want coffee? Always. We moved around each other in the kitchen like we'd done it 100 times. I pulled out mugs. He fiddled with the French press like he still remembered how it worked. You still drink it black? He asked. You remember that? He shrugged. I remember a lot. We sat at the tiny kitchen table, steam curling between us, the silence somehow heavier in daylight. He looked better this morning. Still tired, but less wrecked. I meant what I said last night, he said. About Elise? He shook his head. About you. About thinking about you. I didn't answer, just stared into my coffee. I'm not saying I know what I want, he said, but I know I want to figure it out. And for some reason, you're the person I want near me while I do. That shouldn't have made my chest tighten. But it did. I don't want to be a rebound, I said quietly. You're not. You don't know that. He set his mug down. I didn't come here to sleep with you, if that's what you're thinking. I'm not, I said quickly. It's just complicated. He nodded like he understood. I know, it is. But that doesn't mean it's not real. We didn't say much after that. He left around noon, said he needed to check in with his sister, maybe crash at her place a few days. He promised to text. I didn't know if he actually would. But that night, around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Luca, hey, can I call?" I didn't even think. I hit accept. His voice was softer on the phone, less guarded. We talked for an hour. About nothing at first, then about college, then about us. "What would you have done," he asked, "if I kissed you back then?" "I would have lost my mind." He laughed. "Why?" "Because I thought about it constantly." Another pause. "Me too," he said. And that silence felt different, like something was opening. The first time he stayed over, I thought it would be a one-off. But then he stayed again, and again. It became a quiet pattern. No conversation about it, no schedule. He'd text me late, usually something simple like, "You up?" or "Mind if I crash?" And I'd always say yes. It didn't matter what I was doing. The second I saw his name, I cleared the space beside me without thinking. He never brought an overnight bag. Just showed up. Hoodie, sweats, and that same complicated look in his eyes. The third night he stayed over, he fell asleep with his hand lightly resting on my side. Not possessive. Not by accident. Just there. Like it belonged. I didn't sleep much that night. I couldn't stop staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell we were doing. What this was. The next morning, I asked him, "Do you want breakfast?" He rubbed his eyes, gave me a crooked grin. "You cook?" "No," I admitted, "but I make a mean toaster waffle." He laughed. That laugh, it always hit different, like something warm cracking through the fog. "Then hell yeah," he said. "Waffles it is." We stood in the kitchen barefoot, leaning against the counter while the toaster clicked. He was close enough that our shoulders brushed every time one of us moved. "You know," he said, "this feels weird." I stiffened. "Weird bad?" "No," he said quickly. "Weird good. Like, this is the part of my life I didn't know I was missing." I stared at the toaster like it might rescue me from having to answer. "I don't know what to do with that," I said finally. He didn't push. He just bumped his shoulder into mine. "Then don't do anything. Just let it be what it is." Later that week, he showed up after midnight. I'd already brushed my teeth, turned off the lights. I was half asleep when the knock came. I opened the door in gym shorts and a t-shirt, bleary-eyed. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, hands in his pockets. Then, quietly, "I had a shitty day." I stepped aside. "Come in." He collapsed on the couch, head falling back, hoodie riding up. I handed him a glass of water and sat beside him. "Want to talk about it?" He shook his head. "Just want to be here." That word, "here," did something to me. I leaned back, letting our arms touch. He didn't move away. "I don't know what this is," he said after a while. "Neither do I. But it feels like something." "Yeah," I said. "It does." He turned his head, looked at me. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, "Can I kiss you?" My chest clenched, and all I could do was nod. I thought it would be awkward. You know how in movies, the kiss is always perfect. Music swells, hands go to all the right places. Everything fades into soft light. Yeah, this wasn't like that. This kiss was hesitant, careful, like we were both stepping onto thin ice and hoping it would hold. His lips met mine softly, just once, testing, like he wasn't sure if I'd pull back. I didn't. He kissed me again. A little more firmly this time, his hand slid up my neck, thumb brushing along my jaw. It wasn't a kiss meant to lead somewhere. It was a question. And I answered it. I leaned into him, closed my eyes, let it happen. It was slow, familiar somehow, like we'd done this 100 times in another life. When we finally pulled apart, he didn't move away. Our foreheads touched. His breath mingled with mine. "I've been wanting to do that since sophomore year," he whispered. My chest felt tight, like something big had just shifted. "I didn't know," I said. "I didn't either. Not then." We sat in silence. Not touching now, but still close. I could feel his presence like gravity. Eventually, I asked, "What does this mean?" He sighed. "I don't know. I just know I didn't want to kiss anyone else tonight. Just you." That should have scared me. But it didn't. We didn't talk much after that. He curled up next to me on the couch, head on my shoulder, legs folded under him like we'd done this for years. At some point, I think he fell asleep. I didn't. I just sat there, listening to the quiet of the apartment, feeling the rise and fall of his breath against me, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do now that I'd finally kissed the guy I'd spent years trying not to want. The next morning felt different. Not in a dramatic, world-changing way, but in the kind of way that makes you overly aware of everything. Every sound, every movement, every inch of space between two people. He was still there, still curled up under the blanket we half shared, still breathing slow and even, like the night hadn't shifted anything. But it had. I didn't move right away. I just watched him sleep. It wasn't creepy, I swear. It was just quiet. Still. Like a moment you knew wouldn't come around again exactly the same way. And then he opened his eyes. Slow. Blinking against the light. We locked eyes, and for a second, neither of us said anything. Then he smiled. Barely. Just enough. "Morning," he said, voice rough. "Hey." He stretched, groaning a little, then sat up. His hoodie was all bunched around his waist again, exposing a sliver of skin above his waistband. I looked away quickly. "Old habits," he noticed. "You always get weird after kissing someone?" he asked. Not mean, just teasing. I let out a breathy laugh, only when I've had a crush on them since college. He rubbed the back of his neck. Fair. We moved around the apartment slowly that morning, making coffee, brushing teeth, trying not to bump into each other too much. But there was a current underneath everything now. A question neither of us had asked yet. Was it just that one kiss? Or was there more? He answered it before I could. As I was finishing my coffee, he came up behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his chest against my back. He didn't touch me. Not at first. Then, slowly, he slid his hand around my waist. Just one arm. Light. Like he was testing the rules again. I didn't pull away. You good? He asked quietly. Yeah, I said, heartbeat spiking. You? He nodded against the back of my neck. Getting there. We stood like that for a while. The air felt thick, comfortable and terrifying at the same time. Then he kissed my shoulder. Soft, not asking for more, just existing. I should probably head out, he said eventually, but I'll come back tonight, if that's okay. You don't have to ask. He smiled. Yeah, I do. Lucas started staying over more regularly after that, not every night, but often enough that his hoodie lived on the back of my desk chair, and his toothbrush ended up next to mine without either of us saying anything. We didn't call it anything. Not dating, not sleeping together. It was something in between, something that lived in the quiet. Like when he'd bring over takeout and sit cross-legged on my bed, ranting about his job while I listened, nodding, stealing fries from his carton. Or when I'd wake up to find him already dressed and making coffee like he'd always belonged there. We didn't tell anyone. It wasn't some big secret, but we kept it to ourselves. Maybe because we didn't know what to call it. Maybe because naming it would make it real in a way we weren't ready for. Still, there were signs. My roommate noticed the shift. You've been smiling at your phone a lot lately, he said one night, raising an eyebrow. Is it that guy you used to have a crush on? I froze. What guy? He smirked. The one you'd get all awkward around at your brother's parties. The hot one with the jawline. I rolled my eyes. That doesn't narrow it down. He stared. Luca? I didn't confirm. I didn't deny it either. Interesting, was all he said, then turned back to his laptop. But it wasn't just him. My brother called one night. We hadn't talked in a while. He was catching up, asking how work was going, if I was seeing anyone. I hesitated, and for the first time I said, kind of. He laughed. Wow, that's vague even for you. It's complicated. You seeing someone I know? I paused. Then, softly, "Yeah." The line went quiet for a beat. "Is it who I think it is?" he asked, voice a little tighter. "Yeah. Damn." Another silence. Then he said, "Just don't get hurt, okay?" That stuck with me more than I wanted it to, because as good as it felt with Luca, there was always that little voice in the back of my head whispering that maybe this wasn't built to last, that maybe I was the only one catching feelings at full speed. But then, one night, he came over later than usual. Jacket half-zipped, cheeks flushed from the cold, and before I could even say hi, he kissed me. Hard, like he'd been holding something in all day. When he pulled back, he said, "I told my sister about us." I blinked. "You did?" He nodded. "She asked if I was seeing anyone. I said yes, and I told her it was you." That shouldn't have meant so much, but it did, because it wasn't just a kiss. It was a door opening. The first time we slept together, it wasn't planned. It wasn't even talked about. He came over after work, still in his button-down shirt and slacks, looking exhausted but wired. Said he'd had a rough day. I offered to cook something. He said he just wanted to lie down. We lay side by side on my bed, both fully clothed, not touching, just breathing. His arm brushed mine. Then he turned. I looked over. He leaned in. And this time, the kiss wasn't hesitant. It was deep, certain. His hand slid up my chest, fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt. I reached up, rested mine on the side of his neck, feeling the heat of his skin under my palm. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. There was no script, no checklist. Just us, shedding layers, exploring each other like something sacred. It was slow, thoughtful, like we both knew what it meant. Afterward, we lay tangled under the sheets, his hand resting on my stomach, his breath warm against my shoulder. He didn't say much, just curled into me like he'd found something he'd been missing. Eventually, I whispered, "You okay?" He nodded against my skin. "Better than I've been in a long time." We fell asleep like that. And for the first time in years, I didn't wake up alone. After that night, something shifted. We didn't label it. We didn't sit down and have the talk. But there was a quiet understanding between us now. A comfort, like some invisible line had finally been crossed, and neither of us wanted to go back. Lucas started leaving more things at my place. Not just hoodies or socks, real things. His shaving cream, a spare pair of jeans, a bag of his favorite coffee. Things you only leave somewhere when you know you're staying for more than just the night. One morning I woke up to find him already up, sitting at my desk with a mug in hand, scrolling through some job board. "You applying to stuff?" I asked, groggy. He nodded, thinking about relocating. "To where?" He glanced over his shoulder. "Here, full-time, if you're cool with that." I blinked at him. Yeah, I'm cool with that." He smiled. "Good." We didn't move fast after that. We didn't jump into calling each other boyfriends or post selfies or do any of the performative stuff couples sometimes do when they're trying to convince the world, or themselves, that they're solid. But we were solid. In a quiet, grounded way. Still, there were moments where I'd catch myself wondering if I was dreaming, like when he'd walk out of the shower, towel slung low, and wink at me for no reason. Or when he'd fall asleep on my chest during a movie, his breath syncing with mine like we'd been doing it forever. It was real. But I didn't really believe it until he met my mom. It was unplanned. She was in town for a few days and wanted to grab lunch. I figured I'd go alone, keep things simple. But Luca was already at my place that morning, half-dressed, sipping coffee, and when I told him my plans, he just asked, "You want me to come? You sure?" I asked. He nodded. "If you want me there, I'll be there." So he came. And it wasn't a disaster. In fact, it went weirdly well. My mom liked him, said he had kind eyes, and laughed at his terrible jokes. Later on the walk back, I asked, "You okay?" He looked at me. I didn't do that for show, you know. I did it because I wanted to be seen with you. I stopped walking. He did too. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You're not just your brother's friend to me." I looked at him. "You're not a phase. You're not a mistake. You're just the person I want to be around. Always." That was the moment I knew. We were no longer walking the edge. We were all the way in. Not perfect, not flashy, but real. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next.